Alright guys, so for now we're going to talk about finding surface area of a cylinder. Now, when I say surface area, the first thing I want you to know is that that word is on your formula chart. Now, in your formula chart, under the section that says surface area, there's a whole bunch of things going on here. So I want you to notice that keywords are these here, but there's two types of surface area. There's lateral, which measures faces without the bases, and then there's total, which measures all the faces. Now, for right now, we're working at a cylinder, and instead of choosing one or the other, what I want to do is I want to work out both. So know that there is two types of surface area. There's total, and then there's lateral. So let's go ahead and start by writing in our formulas, and I'll start with total in this case. And we want to go ahead and use that formula. Now, this formula is easy. If you look at the formula, the only piece I actually need is R and H. So if I can figure out R and H, then I can sub them in and that'll be it. So what's my radius? Well, careful, the 7 goes all the way across, so that's diameter. Half of that would be my radius, which is 3.5. And then what's my height? Well, that'd be 12. So all you gotta do is sub in. There you go. Now, the way you write it is the way you type it. So what's 2 pi? Notice I'm using the parentheses. R, which is 3.5, H, 12, plus 2 pi, 3.5, well, I can put that on the outside. In this case, it doesn't really matter where the squared is, but plus 3.5 squared. So that right there is my answer. Now, of course, that answer is correct. There's nothing wrong with it. But I do want to point out that there is, again, an answer in terms of pi. So the way you would get that is you'd work out the same problem, except you would take out the pi. So I would delete the pi that's, oops, that was a 2. Okay, so there you go, 2. And then no pi. And the next one, same thing. I would just delete the pi. So my other answer in terms of pi would be 108.5. And then pi, you bring down your pi. So this is my answer for total. Now if I want lateral, let's go get my lateral surface area formula. That one is going to be just 2 pi RH. So that formula is actually almost the same, just a little bit easier because it's not as long. So what's R, what's H? Well, I already figured those out, so I'll just plug them in. And I would end up with 263.89 feet squared. In this case, all surface area problems will be squared. And then if I was to work that out without the pi, I would end up with 84 pi. And it would still be units squared. So this is for cylinder, probably the easier of all the formulas, but that's how you find the surface area of a cylinder, depending on whether you're asked for total or if you're asked for lateral. Now, let's go ahead and focus on a prism now. Now notice the formula chart for a prism. There's S equals pH, that would be for lateral, and then there's pH plus 2b, that's for total. Now notice the B means something, the P means something else. We want to make sure we use the formula right. So as far as choosing it goes, I know how to choose it right off the formula chart. Now how to use it? Well, I need you to figure out pH and B so that I can sub them in. Now, a quick recap. P stands for perimeter of the base. H is going to stand for height. I want to mention of the prism. And then capital B stands for area of the base. This is why you have that big capital B on the formula chart over here. Okay. Depending on which type of base you have, it could be any of these, you'll have to adjust. But in this case, we have a rectangular prism. Now what I want to point out is the name of the shape tells you the name of the base. So if this is a rectangular prism, I should have a rectangular base. Now, as far as rectangular goes, what's my capital B? What is my area of the base? Well, what's the area of a rectangle? It says here base times height. I'm going to call that length times width. So I'll come back to that in a bit. Now what I want to do is I want to establish my base. So if I'm going to go sub in this formula, what's my base? Well, notice my rectangular prism must have a rectangular base. So there's my rectangle. Now let's go find P. P stood for perimeter of the base. Well, find me the perimeter. You'd have to do 5 plus 5 plus 6 plus 6. So if we add up those numbers, what's 5 plus 5 plus 6 plus 6? And I end up with, if we want to go check, 5 plus 5 plus 6 plus 6, we get 22. So there's my P, perimeter. Now what's my height? Well, that's pretty easy to see here. Got 12. Now what's my capital B? Some people think it's just one solid number, like 5 is the base. No, remember B stands for area of the base. We agreed on rectangular base, so what's the area of a rectangle? I'll use length times width, which turns out to be, what's length and width? 5 by 6. And that gives me 30. So basically, I found all the pieces I need. So what am I going to put in place of my P? Well, my perimeter. What goes in place of H? My height. What goes in place of B? My area of the base. So once you find all the pieces, you just sub them in. And then you're done. All you got to do now is type it the way you set it up. So 22 times 12 plus 2 times 30. And so my answer here would be 324. Don't forget to put units squared to represent this as area. So that would be total. Now, if we move on to lateral, notice it's almost the same formula. It's just a little bit shorter here. So all I need is the P and the H. Now, since I already did the work, I don't have to go figure it out again. Just let's use my P, perimeter, and let's use my H, 12. And that would be it. So type it in the way you set it up. What's 22 times 12? And there you have it. My lateral surface area would be 264 units squared. Now, make sure you're careful with these here. You'll be using these for rectangular prisms and triangular prisms. So I want to go over this one carefully. A lot of people have issues with triangular prisms, but it works the exact same way. As far as the formula chart is concerned, a prism, whether it's rectangular or triangular, uses the same formula. But notice what I did here underneath triangular. Well, if a triangular prism has a triangular base, as far as capital B goes, I'll be using the area of a triangle, which is half base times height. So that's why I wrote this in there. Now let's go ahead and find the total first. So I'm going to go ahead and use PH plus 2B. And I want to go figure out the work on the side so I know what to sub in. Now, I'm going to start with shading the base. If it's a triangular prism, I better have a triangular base. Now, a lot of people mess up there or something. You want to be careful. Now, let's use common sense. If a triangle has 3 sides, you better only add 3 numbers. So, which are the 3 numbers so I can find the perimeter? It'd be 8, 6, and 10. So let's add those numbers up. And what do we get for those? All right, so let's go ahead and add them up. So as far as P goes, this P is going to be 24. My perimeter is 24. Now what's the height of the prism? So that's going to be my 15. And then what's my capital B? Some people again think it's 10. No. B means area of the base. So it's a triangular base, so I'll use my area of a triangle. Now an important thing to notice here is which ones are my base and height. Something you should know is that the base and height must be adjacent to the right angle. So if you look at my right triangle, the right angle there are 2 sides that are adjacent to it. So that means right next to. That would be the 6 and the 8. So when you use half base times height, it's the two sides that are adjacent to it. So what I'm going to use is half times 6 times 8. And notice why I chose 6 and 8. Because they're adjacent to the right angle. 10 has nothing to do with this formula here. Only the 6 and 8 do because they're adjacent. So what's half? Or I could say 0.5 times 6 times 8. And then in case you're worried, if I type in half, I can. It just takes me a little bit longer. Half times 6 times 8, I still end up with the same answer. So my capital B is also 24. Now I can sub them in. Notice how I got all three parts. You have to know what these pieces mean so that you can use it. So sub in place of P for my perimeter, I'll use 24. In place of H, I'll use 15. And then in place of B, I'll use, again, 24. So to get your final answer, type it in the way you set it up. So 24 times 15 plus 2 times 24. So what's my total surface area? 408 units squared. There you have it. So let's go and do the lateral side now. So notice the formula is just going to become pH. So we'll use pH. And well, I already did the work. So what's P? 24. And what's H? 15. Alright, so let's get that typed in. So 24 times 15. And the lateral surface area is going to give me 360. And don't forget your units squared. So triangular prism seems to give a little bit more of a hassle, so I'm going to go and work on another one. Let's go and take a look at this one. So something like a tent or something like that maybe. But again, I want you to notice that it's a triangular prism, so it must have a triangular base. And the reason you see this formula here again is because what's the area of a triangle? And that's where I get half base times height. So that's what I'm going to go ahead and reuse over here. Now let's go ahead and get my formula. Let's do total first. So I'll be getting pH plus 2b. So let's go figure out the pieces so we know what to sub in. Now, P is perimeter of the base, shade your base. Careful, it's a triangular prism, so you better have a triangular base. Now, only three sides, so what are they? So one side here would be 6. Careful, that 6.5 is part of here. That's not actually part of the perimeter. So I got 6, 5, and then this side over here is the same as this side. So it's actually another 6. So 6 plus 6 plus 5 gives me 17. Now my height, careful, the way my triangular prism is positioned, it looks like it's 6.5, but it's actually not. Let's see if this makes sense. If I were to get this image and I was to turn it, maybe something like this, the height is actually, that looks kind of weird, but the height is actually going to be 7. Okay, so my height here is 7, height of the prism. And then capital B is the area of the base. We already agreed that it's a triangular base, so I have to use a triangle formula. And I told you base and height have to be adjacent to the right angle. So which two sides are adjacent right next to this right angle? I got 5, and I got this number right here, my 6.5. So what's half times 5 times 6.5? And I'll go work that out. Let's do half, 0.5, times 5 times 6.5. And I get 16.25. So I got all three pieces. Now I can sub in. So what goes in place of pH plus 2b? So in place of P, I'll use my 17. In place of H, my 7. And in place of B, my 16.25. And you type it in the way you set it up. So 17 times 7 plus 2 times 16.25. And so my total surface area will be 151.5 units squared. And then onto the lateral. So my lateral surface area will be pH, and my P I'll just reuse as 17 and my H as 7. So what's 17 times 7 for a lateral surface area? And I get 119 units squared. Alright, so this has been a quick review on how to use your surface area formulas.